Narcissistic gaslighting is projection. Projection. When the narcissist is talking to somebody, particularly for the first time or one of the earlier interactions, they're not talking to you as if one person talking to another, looking at the other person and trying to see what's going on with the other person. They're talking to you, trying to see how you see them. So they're sort of almost like, it's almost like looking into a mirror and saying, they're always looking into a mirror because they're the only person in their world. And that's another thing that I realized at some point, and it gave me chills, is the narcissist is all alone. There's only them in their world. And when I realized that, I really got like a shiver through my body. When the narcissist meets you or talks to you, they're looking at what you see them as, how you see them. They're not looking at who you are. Oh, nice to meet you. You seem like an interesting person. They're looking at, I wonder what this person thinks of me. I wonder how their opinion of me is going to affect my life. They're sizing you up for their own survival. So if you're not very bright and they know that they can manipulate you, then they'll be your friend. But unfortunately, if you're empathic, or if you're empathic, that means you're perceptive. If you're perceptive, you can see what's going on with them really quickly, and you're intelligent enough to see it. And they see that, they immediately see that as a threat. Red flags. Alarms start going off in their head because they think this is somebody that knows what I'm doing and can see what I'm doing and can see through the manipulation. And immediately, almost instinctively, automatically, grabbing somebody and pulling them out of the way of a train or something, instinctively, they will immediately take whatever problem that you're seeing in them and they will flip it around and say it's you. But that's not enough, because see, as an empathic person, this is what's confusing about them. As an empathic person, you might see somebody that's a narcissist that has some sort of issue with their self-esteem or with something about themselves. And you might say, well, that's fine. Maybe I can even help you with that. We could get through that together. But that's not going to work. That's not going to happen. Immediately, when they see it, sense that you see it, even if they know that you're compassionate, they will flip it around on you, and they will not only see it in you, but they will see it in you, and then they will amplify it. That's what gaslighting is. It's an exaggeration of something that's either there, perceived or imagined, as a flaw, or usually as a mental, psychological flaw. So if they have an insecurity about themselves and they know that you can see it, immediately when they figure out that you can see it, they will flip it around on you and say, you're the one that has that, not me. And they will amplify it 100,000 times, bigger than it ever could have possibly been for them or for you. And it's a way of overcompensating, but it's an overcompensating to such a degree that it would be like somebody, you know, takes a slingshot and shoots it at your house and knocks your window out. And in response, the person who owns the house drops, you know, a nuclear bomb on that person. It's like such an exaggeration because they're trying to eradicate this insecurity or this flaw that they have by eradicating your perception of it, rather than addressing it within themselves. So that's what narcissistic gaslighting is. It is projection. And understanding that goes a long way, because so often this can become a cycle that lasts a long time, because the main thing is people don't want to look within themselves because they're afraid of what is there. But it's even more true with the narcissists because they're usually extroverts, especially the overt ones. Almost always have extrovert qualities. The covert narcissists can be very introverted at times, or perceived to be. But the essence of it is that if there's a weakness that you can see in me, that makes you a threat. So you're a threat to them just by the very fact or the nature of your ability to perceive them clearly. And it would be like mirror, mirror on the wall. It would be like getting angry at a mirror that was very clean and didn't distorted, a clear and clean mirror, and getting angry at it and saying, "Why are you reflecting me so well?" and breaking it and smashing it, and so that it can no longer reflect very well. So unfortunately, as an empathic person, or as a TI, or as a merely a perceptive person, just by your mere existence, nothing you've even said, maybe not even anything that you've even thought, but just the fact that you have the ability, just by the very random roll of the dice of genetics that you got, that you were given the ability to perceive other people to a degree where you can see them, what they're struggling with, makes you a threat to the narcissist. And they will flip it around on you and attack you to no end. I mean, for your entire life, if need be. And it is obsessive. It is sociopathic. It is psychopathic. But it's also it's an OCD thing. It's the equivalent of somebody that sees a stain on their shirt and just keeps on trying to get it out and trying to get it out and trying to get it out. Or seeing the mirror and just seeing a splash on it and just rubbing it, and every single day you wake up and get some Windex and rub it and it never comes out, but you just keep going. So right now I'm going to do a live demonstration of the I Ching and of the app that I have on my phone, and we're going to address this idea and talk about it. So, as a perceptive person, or as an empathic person, who just by their very nature is able to see the flaws in someone else, how do you protect yourself from being scapegoated by someone who doesn't like the fact that you can see their flaws? And what you're going to see in this is you're going to see the shift in my consciousness as I see this through the I Ching, which is what I want to do, and talk about what hexagrams have done. Modesty is what was drawn. Modesty and the darkening of the light. The creative acts to empty what is full and offer abundance to what is modest. Okay. Offer abundance to the narcissist. So why would you do that? Why would you offer abundance to somebody who seems to be lacking or taking something away from you? And this goes into a deeper discussion of what type of abundance, and the idea of ego has been described by James True as being a lack, or narcissism as being a lack. So this goes right into this. And I'm just going to ask how to offer abundance to a narcissist. Decrease. Lessen the power of the ego. Misfortune will be avoided. So the whole idea of ego or inner truth, or truth is separate from another truth. People of the way are quiet and still within and without. Once again, correct yourself meticulously. It still comes back to your own inner journey. And the message that I was given through that was the ego, once again, is a lack. The wounding is a lack, as much as it is the idea that ego is a bad thing. Is something that James True has been talking about a lot, and that it's not a bad thing. It's a formation of identity. And a narcissist is actually suffering from a hole in their ego. It's a wounding of the ego. So what this is indicating in the first part is offering abundance to the narcissist, but the abundance is continue to be offered to the altar of the self. There's no way to give somebody something, to give somebody themselves. So the way to offer abundance in this case is to offer it within your own self, and that means self-love. In other words, if somebody sees you as having some sort of issue, not loving yourself, being insecure, and the projection is then on you, the responsibility you have is not to reassure them that that's not true. The responsibility is to reassure yourself that's not true, that the projection is inaccurate. And if that can be done, then there's no material for them to work with, the narcissist. And they're left with the reality of the fact that what they're doing is projecting. And this creates what I would call like a narcissistic lack, where the supply is being removed in that moment. And this creates like an abscess or a whirlpool in the stream of their ego, and they're looking around for supply. And if you've ever been in a narcissistic family dynamic, this is the point where they will start to guilt trip you and say, well, you don't really love me because you're not giving me supply. What they're saying is, you will not allow me to project my insecurities onto you. You will not allow your life to be an embodiment of my projection in order for me to escape my own consciousness and my own demons. So think about what that is. It's like, it's a Stockholm syndrome. It's like saying, well, if you could imagine somebody who's a slave, somebody who owns a slave, and the slave wants to escape, and the owner of the slave says, hey, what about all the good times we had? You know, it's really the same thing. It's the slave not wanting to admit that they're a slave, because if they did that, then they would have to admit that their slave owner is evil, that their whole life has been a lie. It's not that they don't want freedom, it's that they can't imagine. They can't accept the reality of the abuse. And it's this inability to accept that creates denial and allows the projection to continue. So in essence, the way to offer abundance is to offer the relinquishment of the codependent relationship formed by projection, by being able to see through it within yourself. How does that work? When you notice the projection of the narcissist, it might be useful to name it. It might be useful to write it down exactly what form it's taking. And then remind yourself, or try to fathom whether that's true. And if it's not true, then it's time to reevaluate the dynamics of give and take between you and this other person, because they're actually the one that's lacking, but they want to pretend that they're not. And this goes a long way to express and define how and why narcissists are so ineffectual. They're ineffectual because they're always tired, because they're always lacking. Their ego has this gaping hole in it. And I really like thinking of it that way, the way that James True has decided to express it. So primarily, when somebody is lacking in ego, or when they're experiencing a lack or insecurity, the depth of this insecurity and the profundity of this insecurity is expressed through the projection. And if you fail the test, so to say, of accepting the projection, you effectively send a message to the narcissist that you don't care about them and that you don't wish them well. And they will see that as a threat, and they'll attack you, and they'll flip it around, like I said, and just magnify, 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 and spend their whole lives doing it. I really must prove this to you. You know, I have to at any cost. I have to prove that you were wrong from the start. But you don't have to prove to them that they're wrong about the projection. You have to prove it to yourself. And that's a form of offering abundance to the self, to yourself, or reflecting abundance. And this is where so often I've noticed the double life of the narcissist begins to creep in. um, because they start to see you as, if you're somebody that can see my insecurities, I can get close to you, and you can be my confidant. And there's the public life and there's the private life. And this is increasingly dangerous. Not just psychologically, but uh, to your actual physical well-being, to become a confidant of the narcissist, because everything they say to you is manipulating, even in private. Everything is calculated. But occasionally they will bring out some truth about themselves. And the more you know about them, the more you are a threat. So it's very dangerous to become somebody that the narcissist confides in. This is all food for thought on the idea of narcissistic gaslighting. Hope you enjoy your days. Talk to you later. Subscribers and new viewers of content. Bye. Farewell.